One of the examples that he talked to me about was in Colorado, where he went down into granite. And so they're blasting down into granite, and suddenly they came to a cavity that shouldn't have been there. So they went down to explore what was going on, what this cavity was, and it turned out to have in it a UFO and an alien body. Now, this had occurred so long ago that there was actually like quartz that had formed over the ship and the alien's body. This was the first clue that he had that aliens had been here living in the earth for probably millions of years. When we think about being invaded by aliens, forget it. They're already here and they have been here. They've been a part of our life since the beginning. The second time he told me...
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, the second time he told me about the alien contact was through the deep underground mountain bases with the Dulce, New Mexico.
Right, the Dulce firefight.
Right, the firefight. And he told me about that, how the men came down, and to me the number was like 21 people originally went down. Again, they're blasting holes, and suddenly they discover that there's a cavern already there. So they go down and explore what's going on there, and they find lizard aliens. Dracos is what he would call them. So they're big, tall, reptilian-looking, and they also had some of the gray, what they call grays. They're the smaller, shorter, with the big eyes, the kind that you usually see in the people who have been abducted.
Right.
The typical gray, right. He told me about how some of them are very allergic to ammonia, and they would actually pee in their hard hat and throw the pee on the alien, and it would kill them because they were very allergic to ammonia. Well, I had some theories about some of our mythologies, like vampires, that they're allergic to garlic. You wear garlic around you. Well, garlic forms ammonia. And to me, I think some of our own myths in the past are really based on the blood-eating aliens that he found in these caverns. They had a big vat of blood and human body parts. And they were actually, they're consuming humans.
Now, did he actually see them eating, like, human body parts? I mean, like, because I had never really heard that graphic part of it. I had heard that in one of his speeches he did say that they base their food on our adrenal glands. And,
yeah, they derive one of their happy drugs from us. So when they frighten us and we get the adrenaline going, that's like a drug to them. But then they eat our blood.
Really?
Yeah, they eat it. Yeah, they want our blood, and they eat our body parts. There was this big giant bat.
Certain ones?
Well, it sounded like the reptilian ones specifically were doing this, and the Greys help them get people. So the Greys help abduct people, usually children. There's 1 million children that disappear every year in the United States. 1 million every year. But we only hear about a couple of them. And if you were to map out where children disappear in the United States, they're almost always around where the deep underground mountain bases are. And they're housing these reptilians now. There's a treaty that we have to house them in exchange for their technology.
Right. Another subject, if you wouldn't mind talking about a different subject right now, I want to get as much in as possible about things that he knew, is the Philadelphia experiment. Now, his father, to the best of my knowledge from what we discussed, was working on that program. Is that correct?
Yes, he was. His father was Captain Oscar Schneider of the Navy. He was a medical doctor. So what happened with the Philadelphia experiment, Einstein and Tesla got together. They formed a machine that would vibrate the air, the water, sound, everything together. And they were attempting to make a Navy ship invisible to radar. But what they ended up doing was making a ship invisible to sight. On top of that, the ship could go from the Philadelphia harbor where the experiment started to Newark, New Jersey in like 5 minutes. So there was some sort of a time warp involved. When it reappeared, everything seemed okay. They turned on the machine again, went back to the Philadelphia harbor, and at that point, it reappeared. Men were like impaled in the ship. They were phasing in and out. I mean, this was the reality. It's not just a science fiction show. It really did happen. All the men were quarantined into a psychiatric ward in Virginia, the ones that survived. Obviously, the ones that were impaled in the ship didn't survive. When these men died, Dr. Oscar would come in and autopsy their bodies. And this is some of the letters that Philip found after his father became deceased, were these letters that his father wrote saying, what is this that I'm finding inside their bodies? It's behind their eyes, in their brain, in their arms and their legs, and it was a tiny little gold-tipped transmitter-looking thing, very tiny, with Enochian-type writing on it. And it was an alien implant. I mean, we would know it as that now because we've seen so many of them. Back then, it was a new thing. And so the theory is that the Philadelphia experiment got caught in with some alien interaction, and that's why when it came back that second time, it was all impaled.
Right. What was some of the things that was being printed in that book? Do you know what they were talking about in the book?
I think they were talking about, again, how there are several theories about how the one world order is going to happen. They're going to fake an alien attack so that we have to all get together and fight the aliens, and they're going to create laws that will allow them to put people into the concentration camps that don't agree. Well, we've come pretty close. You know, if you think about Katrina and what happened there, Bush almost got through one of these orders that would have given him powers in martial law.
Right.
And that could have been nationwide, and that could have started it right there. But it didn't go through. Thank goodness. Otherwise, I'm sure the world would be a little different right now.
So at that time, what was some of Phil's thoughts on what he believed the one world order, how it was going to happen? Besides the fake alien attack, did he say anything at all about, I don't know, maybe some of the aliens being on our side and trying to help us in this?
Oh, that's a good question, because he said there were 7 types of aliens, and out of those, 2 were friendly, that actually tried to help us. One of them looks very similar to us. They're a little larger.
Did he say what they were called?
He said they were from the Pleiades.
Oh, the Pleiades.
So the aliens that were from the Pleiades looked more like us and were more friendly to us. But in his mind, he said all aliens were bad because they were all trying to manipulate us. Whether it was good or bad, they all had their own agenda as to why, you know, we're either a food source or something else for them, that they wanted to control us. And so it would be really hard for any of us to determine which one was good and which one was bad. Obviously, the ones that are eating us in a vat of blood are the bad ones. The Greys are their minions. The Greys are working as slaves for them. But there are several other varieties out there.
Do you know which kinds are already here? I know you mentioned the Greys and the Dracos. Are you aware of any other type of extraterrestrial that Phil may have mentioned that may already be taking up residence somewhere in the mountains or underground in Earth?
Well, he said there were 7. So obviously we know about the 7 that are visiting us, whether they're already living here or coming in on ships and visiting us. Okay. The ones that are underground right now are the Greys and the Draco, reptilian type. And they're like vampires. They eat us. They suck our blood and create fear for their drugs. When I think about, some of those stories, like the vampires, even the Pied Piper, some of these stories just are, I think, clues to keep us safe.
Oh, really? Hey,
if you think about the Pied Piper, what does he do? He opens up a mountain and takes the children away. How do you open up a mountain?
Right, exactly.
It's a deep underground mountain base is what it is. And even Open Sesame, what are they doing? They're opening a mountain. So a lot of these...
Interesting. I never thought of it that way.
A lot of these ancient stories that we have are really clues about what's here on Earth already.
One of the things I wanted to sort of backstep on real quick with you, Cynthia, is I remember I asked you when we were talking earlier on the phone, one of the things that I found perplexing was, I mean, I have no doubt that extraterrestrials are real. I have no doubt whatsoever. And I had asked you, did Phil ever mention anything about how what he felt, how the aliens were getting into people's homes, like behind locked doors and so on and so forth? And you mentioned something like dreamscaping or things like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's remote viewing and dreamscaping, but I think for the aliens, they have a interdimensional ability to actually go through walls, buildings. I mean, they can do things because it's the vibrations, kind of like a transformer on Star Trek. They can go through places, but I've seen them walk through doors and walls in my own home. But luckily I didn't get abducted. Yeah, I didn't get abducted. They came through, though. They were the Greys, yeah.
Oh, wow. I mean, that's just chilling,
And that's where the chapter in Philip's book that I was writing was how to avoid being abducted by the aliens. And it had to do with...
What did he say? How do you avoid that then?
Well, ammonia, for one, because many of the aliens are allergic to that. So you could spray Windex with ammonia around your room, on your windows. You could have garlic, because garlic produces ammonia. So, again, that vampires theory, how some of these old myths were ways of telling us how to be safe, is actually having garlic in your home or around you will keep them from abducting you. Also metal, like a piece of meteorite or a piece of iron or a magnet, because if they try to transport you onto their ship, it messes up with all their electronics. So if you have like a piece of meteorite or a magnet, also the cross, the sign of the cross, doesn't have to actually be a cross even, but again, a sign of the cross. There's something about that, the power of it, that can keep you from being abducted. And in fact, that's how it was for me. I grabbed the cross that was on my neck, and they went away, and never came back. And never came back. Thank God.
I've heard that before, where you hear so many. Chris, his website, he hears a lot of the abductees' experiences, And Chris, I think you would agree that, you know, sometimes that works for abductees and sometimes it doesn't. You know,
Right.
the religious aspect, not just the Christian background aspect of it with the crucifix, but other religious articles that people thought would keep them away didn't work. Well, Cynthia, we're about to go off the air here, but I want to thank you very much for everything that your family has done to preserve, you know, our own rights, you know, as American citizens, and that is to freedom of speech, and disclosure is a right of way for everyone in the human race, and no person has the right to take that from anyone else. So I want to thank you for being on the show, and thank you to all my listeners, and I will talk to you soon, Cynthia.
Thank you, Carrie. Bye-bye.